All right, so today we're here with Ryan Loutos, recent free agent signee with the St. Louis Cardinals organization. You went to Wash U University in St. Louis, and you grew up here in Barrington, Illinois. Thanks for coming on today. It's good to have you. It's good
Thanks for having me.
Talk some baseball. So we're going to get going on baseball, and then Kurt can jump in and ask some questions.
Normal people questions.
Yeah, because we'll get going. We'll get going about baseball. So you're just getting back from a couple of weeks of being in pro ball.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your experience so far. Like what'd you do well, and then what do you got to work on? Where are you going from here?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty thankful to be with the LowA team in Palm Beach right away, so that was cool. And I really had no idea what to expect because every one of my teammates had 3 or 4 years of facing hitters at the Division I level, and I'm coming from a Division III school, so I know my stuff, my pitches, my velocity played at that level really well, but I didn't know how I was going to play exactly against professional hitters who are used to seeing my velocity and who you'll watch and they'll turn around a fastball at 96, right? So that was something that I didn't know what to expect. So getting out there and just like getting my feet wet was really cool, and seeing like this 90 to 92 mile per hour fastball and with a few other pitches still plays pretty well.
Yeah.
And now it's just about fine tuning it and obviously trying to continue to gain velo, because that's still the number one predictor of pitcher success. So it was just good to get out there and see how my stuff played more than anything, because I was only there for 8 weeks, I think.
Gotcha. So you felt like you belonged. And then even in that last week, you did pretty well. You had a nice week, and you got a write-up, I think, from the Cardinals that you had a nice week.
Yeah, I started off pretty strong overall, and then I kind of had a couple tough outings, like with 2 or 3 weeks to go. Just one of those where every ball is finding the hole, and just gave a few runs. And then my last week, I had a couple good outings where I think I ended up throwing 4 innings and striking out 6 or something like that, and didn't give up any runs. So that was good to end strong. One thing that I was trying to do was throw my curveball more, trying to get more strikeouts on it, because it grades pretty well, and I just never threw it in college because I never needed it. So it was good I threw that more and got a few strikeouts on it. So it was good to it was a good stepping stone for the offseason.
Tasted some success on the way out.
Yeah, exactly.
Good thing to build on. Going into next year. Cool. So, so people that probably don't know your backstory. So, you were playing baseball growing up. You said you played golf, and then, I recall you sending us videos in one of your off season where you finally hit 90 miles an hour. You got yourself to that point.
Yeah.
And that was an exciting milestone for you.
Yeah.
And then from my perspective, it was pretty cool because I think it was last year, was it 2 years ago, when you sent another video and you were hitting now 96.
Yeah.
So that's some pretty serious development.
Yeah. I think in high school, I was pretty much from my freshman year, I kind of that's when I started to get kind of serious about training and other things, right? So every year, I was only throwing low 70s as a freshman in high school. I would, maybe topped at 76 or something like that, 75, but would probably throw in the low 70s. And then sophomore year, I gained probably another 4 or 5 miles per hour. I was in the upper 70s. I would top at 81, 82, which was awesome. And then, junior year was topping at 85, 86, and was sitting, in the low 80s. And then my senior year, on my birthday, I was doing a velo pen where, it's just grab the ball, throw it as hard as you can. You kind of just work your way up and build up to it. You got to make sure you're rested going into and all that stuff. But my previous high for velo was 87, and I hit 90. Just I just boom, 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 88. All of a sudden, a couple 88s, a couple 89s, a couple 90s, and I was and it was just a big milestone as a senior in high school to hit that, and that gave me a ton of confidence going into my senior year, knowing that I could throw that hard and hit that hard. So that was pretty cool. And then I would just in college it was kind of slow. I only got up to 92 by my sophomore year, so a little bit of increases, nothing too crazy. And then when quarantine hit, I really kind of I was kind of messing around with my mechanics a lot the whole year before COVID hit, and then once our season got canceled, I just said, screw it, I'm gonna try to like get a ton stronger, gain a bunch of weight, and just see what happens, because that's something I didn't really do my first couple years of college, and I didn't see a ton of gain, which I did in all of high school, just trying to gaining 20 pounds every off season, and then so I did that, and then all of a sudden I hit 93 in a velo pen, and then I hit 96, and have I got out there since? No, but like it kind of like it set by hitting 96, you kind of also raise your floor and maybe where you sit at normally,
Raise
right?
your floor, raise your ceiling.
Correct, yeah. So I raised the ceiling up, and I've only gotten up to 94 in games, but just by doing that and kind of like forcing you kind of just like it's kind of like train. You do that in training, right? You like force your body to move faster than it's comfortable doing in a way, right? And I think that just helps raise where where my normal like sitting velocity is.
So this is cool, and this is what's been like reinforcing for me to watch you go through this process is you had an early commitment. You're a special type of personality. You're very intelligent, and when you came in to our facility at one point, you had a very developmental mindset. Mm-hmm. You had found out about us. You kind of done your own research. You were looking at different fitness training programs. Found your way to us. So you always had that understanding that developmental mindset of you were going to do what was necessary outside of baseball to develop to the level that you wanted. And you kind of touched on it, that in high school you weren't necessarily the player that you ultimately evolved into, and that you grew into that year over year. So I think that's cool, and not everybody has that mindset. And that, for me, I've watched you use that mindset and continue to level up each level. And now here you are today, so that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't even know like what. I think my dad played a big role into that, and like pushing and like having that mindset, and like wanting pushing me to work out and be consistent, right? Like I mean, my freshman sophomore year of high school, I would do something related to baseball training probably 6 days a week. Like I think it was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would go and do some sort of lift or workout, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I would do something more baseball specific. And so pretty much 6 days out of the week, all off season, I was training, and I think that played a big role. And then I think that also, just all you got to do is do it one time, right? Like maybe that freshman year I wasn't super motivated to do it, but with my dad helping me like push me through it, I think that I saw the differences it made, my freshman year, and then you just kind of keep going through it, and you keep getting that reinforcement of like, okay, if I do X, right, then you see the results here, right? But yeah, I think you always naturally get better as you get older, and as you just have more reps and play longer. But I knew that like I was 6'2", 150 as a freshman, like there's a ton of room for growth there, and like,
sure.
I mean, it's pretty easy to see like, okay, I'm definitely not that mature right now, so like let's keep working on it.
Did you always have aspiration of playing, or what, did it start to become more real? Was it something you didn't want to admit to yourself?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think early on in high school I didn't really know the place, so like a little bit of background.
Was there a moment where you kind of believed in yourself to the point where, hey, I could play in college, or I could play at a higher level?
Honestly, like my freshman and sophomore year, it was like my goal was just to be a significant starter on varsity. Like I saw what the guys on varsity were doing, and it was like, okay, I'm clearly not there as a freshman, so like there's got to be I got to improve, right? Like the freshman or the junior and senior starting pitchers on varsity were throwing in the 80s, right? And I was throwing low 70s as a freshman. So like it's pretty clear, it's pretty easy to see like, okay, like if I want to try to get there and have fun and be a significant starter and make a run in playoffs, with my team in high school, I'm gonna like need to make some changes and like get after it in the offseason a little bit. And then I don't think I really had that revelation of like playing college baseball until like junior year. I always talked about it, and it was always, but like as a freshman and sophomore, it wasn't good enough where like I didn't have colleges talking to me, right? I'm sure a lot of guys will. But then my junior year, like all of a sudden I started to see some velo gains, like was sitting more in the low 80s. I think that was like the first time I pulled down 95. So like on like a running crow hop throw, I hit 90, and then I was throwing more like in like the low 80s, right? And I was like, okay, like this could be. I remember like researching how hard do Division II baseball players throw, how hard do Division I baseball players throw, and like thinking like, because at that point I kind of knew like that's how recruiting happens is by velocity for the most part as pitchers. So you have to pretty much have a floor of like, you have to throw at least this hard. So, and then junior year, I was starting to throw in the low 80s. I'm like, okay, like let's start to like reach out to colleges and see, because I know like, and then I kind of just kept on going that way.
So what does that reaching out look like? What are you talking to them about?
Pretty much like my junior fall, I was golfing, and then once I started training again, I hit some good numbers, and then it was like, you know, talking to other people that we knew that have maybe gone through this process or coached a lot of other athletes that play college baseball, and they, you know, it's pretty much just like, hey, you just gotta like email coaches, you know, and we did some other, make a recruiting video, like take videos of yourself, you know, just promote yourself as best you can, and then, you know, and then go to some like showcases that summer, you know, summer after junior year is a big time for like a lot of colleges, especially Division III. So it was during the spring, I just reached out, got into contact with a bunch, and then that summer I went to a couple big showcases that were like academically focused showcases, right? Because I knew I wanted to go to a high academic school, and then that's when, you know, I got into contact with WashU and Tufts and Johns Hopkins and some other schools.
So yeah, and you're a smart kid. That doesn't hurt either.
Yeah,
good grades.
Yeah.
So that'll transition us nicely. So tell us about the project that you were doing at school with your pitching staff, like kind of what you threw together there.
So like I started to get really into, so I majored in computer science, and I got really, it was just my major for basically my first 2 years. Like it was cool, right? But it wasn't like a passion or anything like that. And then my junior year, started to finally take some classes that were closer to real world experience and like learning how to build things. You know, it's one thing to like learn how to write a program that maybe does something very simple or whatever the case may be, right? But it's another thing to like build, to learn how to code, to build something that like a user like interacts with, right? And like it's a whole different experience. So I took some classes to start to do that, and then I knew I had the idea of coming up with a solution we would track everything on charts, on paper.
So,
Like we
so in baseball, when pitchers pitch, they keep track of what type of pitch, how many balls they threw, how many strikes, which type they threw for balls. So there's a lot of data that pitchers are using. So
even the simple of like like when we would have two guys behind home plate with a radar gun recording the velo of every pitch, a stopwatch recording if there's a guy on base, how fast they are to home plate, you know, to make sure that guys aren't stealing on us. And then we would record whether it was ball, strike, foul ball, put in play, swing, strike, you know, where the pitch was. We would literally write like LO, low and out, or up and out, UO. And then we would write what the pitch type was, right? So we had all this information on this sheet, and you have to go into the coach's office to go look at it maybe once a week, and then maybe I take a picture of it or whatever and put it in an Excel doc to see like what my average velo was. But then it takes 15 minutes to type in all the numbers and everything, so it's kind of annoying. So then we went out and we wanted to like make it more accessible, so we built a website that could store all this information and connected with the database and all that stuff. And then we built this in-game tracker that that you can have a laptop or iPad, and you just basically instead of writing every pitch down, it's a little user interface where you track what pitch was thrown, the velo, all that stuff, the location on a little like you just click where it was, right? So it's a little more accurate than writing LO, so you kind of know like where exactly it was. And that would go to the website in real time. And then, again, just continually building features on it, building features for hitters too, where they can see spray charts, right? Like, we can now, like, instead of writing on, like, a little spray chart where the ball goes, I can just click on a little screen on a little field, and now you have a cool spray chart of exactly where you hit the ball, right? There's technology that does it, but a lot of high schools and colleges don't have that. Yeah. So that kind of just evolved, and it was a passion project, and that's all it was. And, it was applicable to baseball, and I was learning a ton with software too. So it was just and it saw how it impacted the team, and just having data accessible to players, I think, was the biggest thing. Like, guys would go and look back and see like their strike percentages immediately after, right? It was so easy, just look back, or man, where was that pitch, or I didn't throw enough curveballs today, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and that's the direction sports are heading. But at the higher levels, college, a little bit behind, just don't have quite the resources. So that's pretty cool that you were implementing that, and then it trickles down.
Yeah.
So I think it's starting to get more mainstream. But so then that opened up some doors for you. So now, right now, you're working with a company, Rapsodo, and tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, like I had a teammate who was interning for them last summer, and then it was pretty much mostly remote, and that's again right in the middle of the pandemic, right when it was going on, and then that summer I was playing summer baseball in Wisconsin, and I reached out. I knew he was working for them and was going to continue to work for them during the school year, so I just reached out and was like, hey, like this is my background, like if you'd have any need like for me in any capacity, like that'd be cool. And they reached out right back and said sure, and I started doing some part-time work for them during the school year, kind of just random tasks, that whatever they needed help with, a lot of just like random Excel things, data cleaning, maybe like I did a few like mock-ups for some future apps and stuff like that, helped out with that, so that was cool. And then did some more bigger projects this last summer. Once the season ended for WashU, I was playing summer baseball and kept playing baseball all summer, right? So I had the mornings to kind of do nothing, and I used that time to work for Rapsodo, make some extra money, and then learn and work on some cool projects. So yeah, they're a pretty like high tech baseball company, super growing really, really fast right now.
Cool. Yeah, and you were explaining some of the machines where they read spin rates and in real time, and then you got one for pitchers, one for hitters. Gives you a lot of data feedback.
Yeah,
and then the coaches can use it, the players can use it, and you're getting feedback in real time to make adjustments to your.
Yeah, if you ever hear like about pitchers, like during the MLB this year, that how there was a big thing on like using sticky substances, right? Because it would increase your spin rate, and that's like become more mainstream now, of like using information like spin rate and how much it moves horizontally and vertically and other things to like, one, evaluate pitchers, and two, develop pitchers. So they've kind of changed the game big time at like the college and high school levels, because that technology was only available by like TrackMan and StatCast with MLB teams before, and now it's pretty much available at a lot of private facilities. Sure. And a lot, some high schools and pretty much every college nowadays.
Much more mainstream. And then so then you just had a meeting you got a Driveline shirt. They're very, very metric driven.
Yeah.
And then you just had a meeting with the St. Louis Cardinals about possibly helping them with some software, computer driven technology to help them manage their player development.
Yeah, they have a lot already in. They have a lot of systems built out right now, but they, I think with my expertise, especially in building like web-based applications, I'm going to be helping out with them over the off season, working on some player and coach facing apps, which will be really cool, because I'm the end user, right? And I'm interacting with other end users with the app. So that'll be really cool. I get to continue to build software in the off season, right? Instead of, I'm like, I know a lot of guys are working, maybe at their local gym or other things, right? And they're making some money in the off season because you don't make a ton of money playing minor league baseball. So it'll be good because I get to grow, like learn a ton about software, because it's still a passion of mine.
Right.
And it's baseball related, so even better. And I'm the end user, coaches are the end user. So it's cool. I'll definitely learn a lot, and so just getting started with them this week.
I'm no software expert, but I got to assume that like computer development is probably important to have some experience, because if you're talking to somebody that doesn't understand the nuance of what you're trying to develop, I feel like anything that was developed was probably someone that had a little skin in the game or a little passion.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. So I think hopefully that me being a baseball player in the organization will, have a positive impact on like the apps and the systems that like I'll be able to contribute to.
Pull all the pieces together.
Yeah.
Cool. So player metrics. So this is something that we talk about a lot, and I think it's important for younger players to understand the developmental process. So your mindset is very similar to our mindset when it comes to development, about you have to eventually develop the physical tools, and then fine tune your baseball skills.
Yep.
And there's a balance, right?
Right.
Because if you spend too much time on skills, so every player is a little bit different based on whether they possess the skills or the physical abilities to play the sport at the level that they're looking to play. And you've always been an interesting conversation because as you've climbed the ranks, you've understood that and you've balanced that out at each level.
Yeah, I think so many people will sell out to one or the other. So many people will sell out to just like getting, lifting a ton, lifting big weights, which is awesome, right? And but it just doesn't translate to the field, right? Like they and maybe it's because it's a passion for them to lift, right? So they don't have maybe they'd rather lift than they would practice pitching, right? So that's I understand that too. But there's other kids who will just throw and throw and throw, or take ground balls all day long, or take swings all day long, but they will never pick up a weight, right? So a lot of times in high school is when you see it the most, and you see it in college too, of like this, you'll see guys who are just huge and like really strong, but they like can't put it together in a baseball field, and then you'll see guys who are super skinny, weak, underdeveloped, but they're so skilled, right? And it's like both those guys have so much room for growth, just in completely different avenues. But there's such a balance between if you just sell out for velocity as like a pitcher, for example, or you just sell out for exit velocity as a hitter, you're gonna lose a lot of that like competitiveness that like comes in like playing the game of baseball, right? It's still like you still have to compete, and like there is such a there's so many little things about baseball that like if all you do is lift, you're never gonna get better. Like you'll get better because you throw harder or you hit the ball harder, and you're a little faster. But like there's all those like little cat and mouse games, and just being an athlete, right? So there's a lot to that I think gets lost if you just go down one avenue or the other. And there's a very good fine line of just like you have to just know where you're at, your body's at, and then put some eggs in this basket and put some eggs in the other basket.
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it. In your situation specifically, you had uncovered a lot of mechanical things that you were trying to work on, and then when you finally put all the pieces together, you recommitted. So you had put the mechanical pieces in place, and then during that off season, you really recommitted to getting just really strong.
Yeah.
And then everything kind of came together. All of a sudden, the velocity jumped, good timing.
Yeah.
But this is another thing, and this is where some other guys can run into trouble, is they sell out for those measurables that coaches are looking for, that 60 time or that throwing velocity or exit velocity.
Yeah.
And then they get to the point where they're not necessarily competitive in a baseball situation because they're just so sold on developing these measurables to get to that point. And then, I'm sure you probably see it. You probably see guys that are throwing mid to upper 90s, but they're not as successful as other guys that are throwing 92, 93.
For sure. Yeah, you see guys that will sometimes throw, we have a lefty that throws in the upper 80s, but he's one of our best pitchers, because he just knows how to pitch and he mixes it up well, and he is really good at the baseball side of things. And if one day he's now throwing 93, he's going to be really, really successful, and he's already successful in the upper 80s, right? But yeah, I think going back to I think that the balance of both the strength and conditioning side and the baseball side, it's so pretty much I had a good balance all throughout high school. I gained velo every year. I really focused on strength during the offseason, a lot of that, and because I had a lot of room for growth, and every offseason was 20 pounds heavier, 150, 175, 200, 220, and then all of a sudden, by my senior year, I'm throwing almost 20 miles per hour harder than I was as a freshman in high school. And then I had a lot of room for growth too. I'm tall, so I have a lot going for me in that way, but I just needed to utilize it. And then in college, I kind of got away from that, where I was pretty steady at my weight for 2.5 years at 210, 215 in college, and my velocity didn't really change a whole lot. Maybe some slight increases, because just by throwing and playing, you always slowly increase your velo. And then I tried to make a ton of mechanical changes because I thought that was the issue, and then eventually it wasn't. My velocity was worse, and then COVID happened and it was blessing. I think it was kind of for me, I took it as all right, I'm just gonna say screw it. I haven't tried this in a while. I haven't just put on weight and gotten a lot stronger since my senior year of high school, and it worked then. So screw it, let's just try it. And then that's when I was able to hit 96. And but then like I said, going like on the same token, I hit 96, and then I went to summer ball and I couldn't throw strikes. So it was like I kind of sold out too far again, but I kind of needed to, right? Like I did need to, and like I learned kind of what that balance was for me, like by doing that. So yeah, it sucked because I was struggling big time in summer ball because I couldn't throw strikes. I was throwing harder, I was up to 94 in summer ball, 93, and then that fall I kind of backed off a little bit and like kind of refound my mechanics and trying to throw that same velo at some mechanics that I knew that worked without like getting too in my head about exactly my mechanic. Like there's again that fine line. There's just like a good balance between everything. So, and I think that kind of springboarded into me having like a really good senior year of college.
Yeah, and there's a season and an off season, and that's a cool story because there was some trial and error mixed in there, and then just following the guidance of what you think and what has worked, and then progress seems linear, but there's a lot of this going on. So as long as in the long run, it's going up. So your velocity jumped. You went and had to learn how to apply that.
Yeah.
And then so in a less not competitive environment, but it's not your actual college season. It's summer ball. You're still getting scouted, and you want to perform, but you have a couple bad outings. It's not the end of the world. So then you could take that as like a work in progress, and then your season went really well. So you had that little period of time to
I think it was tough.
fine tune.
Yeah, sorry. I think it was tough because it was the first time I ever really failed in a baseball setting, like ever, like really failed. I mean, everyone's had tough outings, and in high school, like I was never like that great, but I always was competitive, right? Like I never, even when I wasn't throwing very hard or I was underdeveloped, I was still competitive at that weight and at that time. But then that was like the first time where I really struggled, and so that was tough to like. But I think that's kind of helped me going into pro ball now, right? Where I've had a little struggles too, but my mindset about it is so much different, right? It's like, and it's like, especially as someone who has aspirations to play college baseball or make their varsity team or play college, whatever your aspirations are, like there's going to be a moment where you fail and you feel like that you lost your opportunity, but like you don't, you know what I mean? Like you have to just keep sticking with it and like not lose that. And I think that's where that's what was also cool and what I learned about that summer, where like I was just in my head about a lot of things, and I thought this was my opportunity to play professional baseball because I was facing a lot of Division I players, guys in the SEC, guys in a lot of Power 5 conferences, and I was really struggling. And then all of a sudden, like, and then I think that learning experience of struggling, I think helped now as I'm into pro ball, and when I've had, now I'm facing pro hitters, had a little struggle, but it kind of, but because I went through that, it allowed me to like finish the season strong and not let one outing affect the next. And so it was definitely a good learning experience through the whole thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I want to know what that so you in like freshman year, you're saying 3 days a week strength, 3 days a week baseball specific. How did you come to that balance of what you're going to do? And then years following, how did you determine?
So, well, I think it was just kind of by circumstance where I don't know why Monday, I think just like, so I worked out my freshman and sophomore year and junior year too, I think. I worked out at CrossFit Barrington, and because my mom worked out there for a while, and they had like a teens class, so that was like my introduction to lifting. And then I don't know if their teens class was just Monday, Wednesday, and Friday maybe, and that's why it just kind of like worked out where their teens class was those days. So then the other days I would go to another baseball facility, Fastball USA, and they had classes on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, I think it was. So I think it just kind of worked out that way, and I knew if I lifted more than 3 days a week, you got to give yourself time to recover and stuff like that too. So it was a good balance, and I think I found that balance pretty quick, and I kind of just like kept going with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And then being analytical and you're like, are you going like reverse engineering? So these are what the seniors are doing. So they're 200 pounds type of thing. So what am I going to do to get to 200 pounds type of thing? Or are you looking at what they're doing in the weight room too, and what they're doing on the field and try to see
honestly,
where you could get there?
Yeah, I didn't really look at what they were doing to get there. I knew that they were there. And then I think just by surrounding myself with people to get stronger, get bigger, that were, that I could learn a lot and grow a lot with baseball, right? And I didn't like the world of development and working out, and especially baseball development now is so big. But then, my circle was pretty small, so I just utilized the people that I knew around me, right? And then that, like, so I didn't really, like, pay attention to what exactly they were doing. I just knew I needed to get there, and I wasn't there. So I knew that, like, yeah, I needed to get stronger. I needed to throw harder. And then I think just following the, I'm a 14, 15-year-old, right? You don't know what you're doing. So you just follow the people that are closest to you that you trust, right, to kind of help guide you along that way. And then I was probably more mature for my age at that point anyway, where I think I had a good mindset of, asking the right questions and things like that too. I wasn't just like a person that was gonna just do exactly what I was told, right? I was gonna ask and like learn as much as I could along that process too, because it was a passion then too of like, how do I get better at this sport? So
I'd say you were above average with that too, like the developmental process. So like, like you said, you knew you had to be doing something.
Yeah.
But then you were always good about finding the right thing, getting feedback, using feedback as changing your behavior, altering little things, and just having improvement kind of be your guiding light.
Yeah.
And you just continue to kind of ride that year over year, in season, off season, and then you kind of ended up. But that for me was noticeable with like you guys were you asked the right questions, you did the right things.
Yeah, and I think I definitely the person, or I guess like what was the most helpful was like my dad and my mom. My dad specifically of like finding the places and like, hey, like check this out, check this place out, right? And that's why I came here in the first place was, after my junior year, it was like I knew one of my teammates, Brooks Gosswein, who just got drafted by the White Sox. He was working out here and saw some big gains in one offseason, and right, so it was like, and then my dad kind of pushed. I probably, maybe if no one said anything, I would have kept working out across at Barrington because I was really comfortable with it. But I needed to get more baseball specific at that point, and then he kind of pushed me to come and work out at SAA, which I think was the right move, and I got way more specific towards baseball. Was a lot less aerobic, a lot more strength and whatnot, and really just trying to hammer it as much as I could, and that made a huge difference. And now again, that's when I hit 90 for the first time and all those things. So like, and my dad's always been that guy who like he'll find those opportunities, like, and I don't even know how sometimes, but like he'll be like, hey, check this thing out, I think you should do this kind of thing. And then it's like you try it, or maybe you explore it and be like, no, I don't want to do that, or yes, I do want to do that, right? And then there's that feedback loop.
It's interesting that you give him that respect, that if a dad just dangles that out, like, hey, maybe check this out, what do you think? And then understanding that you're an intelligent enough kid and driven, you're very driven, and that he could just dangle that out there, and then you'd kind of like, so that's cool. I'm always very interested in the background of success, so like little stuff like that, how it adds up, little intangible things that are, it's hard to quantify those types of things. Right?
Yeah, I think I would have and it's like I was always someone who like did what I had to do, right? I'm always gonna get my workout in. I'm always gonna get my homework done.
Your mom was setting a good example, going to CrossFit continuously,
right?
Hey,
and being,
setting the tone for you.
And then so like exactly. And then I think what my dad would always do was like kind of like look for the next thing. I'd get maybe really comfortable doing what I was doing, and maybe I'd see some gains, right? But then it was like, all right, what's the next step, right? And I think that's where like, moving the needle. I think that's where he would always be like, all right, I think like, this is what I think you should do, or this is what this is kind of, and then he would kind of like, dangle that thing, like, hey, like, let's like push the needle a little bit. And it's this, to this day, talking about what's next for like this off season, right? Like, got a good plan right now. Like working with you here, but then at some point I want to go train with like some other minor leaguers, right? Put myself in an environment with other professional baseball players, and like where's that going to be? What's that going to look like? And that's where, same thing. My dad's kind of pushing the needle and like trying to figure out helping me figure out like what that's going to be and look like.
Yeah, that's cool. Maybe you can get him a job in development.
He would, definitely would be good at it.
Yeah. I was trying to explain that to Kurt with your kids, and like you try to prepare them for success, and like if you send them into sports it's hard. It can be heartbreaking to watch them fail or struggle or go through those. You've had a lot of positive learning experiences and some negative.
Yeah.
But you send your kids into sports hoping that something clicks, and not necessarily that they're going to be a professional athlete, but that they're going to enjoy themselves and feel confident, sweat, and be active for the rest of their life. And when they're not prepared and they fail, and then they fail again, and then they fail. So as a parent, you're looking for the next opportunity to send them in prepared.
Yeah, I think my dad is way more nervous watching me play sports than I am. Nervous playing them, which is always funny. Like in college, he would go and I'd be during one of my starts. He would watch, and if a guy got on first base, it'd be like the third inning. Maybe I struck out a bunch of dudes already, and like a guy got on first base. Maybe I walked the guy, or get a stupid little hit, and he would just go like take off and call someone because he couldn't watch. Like he would like just like walk, walk, and like all of a sudden you just like look and you see him like half a mile away, like on the phone because he can't watch when like something like, and it's like a guy got on first base. It happens almost every inning in baseball, right? But that's just like how he is. So like, I think it is interesting, but I think also he just is also such a huge sports lover. So like grew up, his dad didn't really push him to like play sports. So like he played growing up, and then he got to high school and then didn't play in high school, then played hockey his senior year, played men's league hockey, after that was always been a huge Chicago sports fan. Right. So I think he's just always just wanted me like to be athletic in all of us, right? And I think, and sports aren't for everyone, but who knows where I'd be if he didn't like push me through that, because but it also like that's the beautiful thing about sports and working out and other things. There's just like so many life lessons that go with it, right? Too, and it also just like it doesn't define you, right? Who you are like as an athlete, but it makes up part of your identity. And I think, and like you just learn and grow so much, and just so many interactions. So, like some of my favorite memories of all time, are playing sports. And I think people that maybe aren't into it as much they don't understand that as much sometimes, but that's what, and maybe their best memories are somewhere else too, right? But I think, it teaches you so much, right? Because you fail and you succeed, and there's a lot in between, right? And
like
you have to deal with people, and you have to deal with a team, and it's like, and all of a sudden you're working on a team in a workplace, right? And it's pretty similar to, working on a team in a sport, right?
There's a lot of huge companies, successful companies that look for athletes specifically that understand that, you don't win them all, that that developmental mindset. How can I get better today or tomorrow and move the needle? Those are people that are inspiring to be around. And, not that, like you said, not that sports are the only thing or that makes up your entire identity, but it helps shape that in you.
For sure.
Those traits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are your immediate off-season goals, longer off-season goals, and then kind of heading into next season? What does that look like for you?
I mean, so the Cardinals don't have any fall instructs. Like some teams will have fall instructs. And then the Cardinals will sometimes have I guess what would normally be fall instructs as like a mini camp before spring training. So don't know if we're gonna have that yet, but if we don't, which I don't think we will, I pretty much have the whole off season. I don't have to report until I think it's like March 1st for minor league spring training, and so that's a lot. That's the biggest off season I've had in my life is 5 months. I mean, maybe in high school it got close to that, but like the longest off season I've had, because in college you don't really get a 5-month off season because you have fall ball and then other things, right? So a lot of time to kind of develop and really refine a lot of things. But so I'm really trying to take a good balanced approach where I know I need to get stronger. Like immediately, the immediate goals are let my arm rest, try to regain some strength that maybe I lost during the season, gain some strength, gain some weight, because again, weight has continually been the one thing that has helped me throw harder over time. And then once I do that for a month or two, or however long I feel I need, and I start to build back up the throwing, then I'll continue lifting, right, and pushing that envelope, maybe back off just a little bit, and then start to push the throwing, and try to transfer some of those strength gains into the throwing, and then also continuing to just refine the pitches. Refine my arsenal, continue to work on my command, and I think personally there's no better way to do that just by throwing and throwing often. I think that's when I've seen the most gains is just going out and playing catch with your buddy. You know what I mean? And like, working on throwing a slider and asking them how was that. And that's coming from someone who works for a company like Rapsodo that helps you develop sliders. So I think even with that, there's like a good fine line of like, you got to go out and throw with it and like feel comfortable with it, and then you just use those tools, right? So like I'll use tools like Rapsodo, but I'm still just gonna also use that like day to day just playing catch, throwing pitches and working on stuff like that too. So I definitely am, it's like a transition of like, all right, strength, gaining weight, and then it slowly transitions to being more baseball specific as you get to March. So just like a slow, it's like a slow
dimmer
gradual
switch
thing.
or like a balance. Yeah, right. This is high and then this is low.
Yeah, I love like the saying of like you have $1 to spend on training, and like you can only spend $1. If you spend more, you might get hurt or something's gonna happen, right? So like right now, pretty much my whole dollar is gonna go towards eating and lifting and mobility. And then as this off season goes on, I'll spend more and more money on throwing and baseball specific stuff, right? So
and that's the formula. Mm-hmm. And where people get lost is, like you said, their dollar either stays there for too long, and then now it's baseball season, and you're still in off season training mode, or there's never an off season, you're still in baseball mode. And that's one thing that I see a lot. These travel programs are engaging these kids year round. They're starting to come around that they need to have some kind of like strength and conditioning, but a lot of times that it's not a good developmental approach. But these kids are playing a lot of baseball, and most of their dollar is going towards baseball. And someone that's played for quite a while now, there's a mental component too. Sometimes it's nice to take a break from these intricate details of my index finger needs there's only so much of that you can do, and that high velocity throwing is hard on your body, your nervous system. Like you get pretty wiped out from it. And then too, the heavy hard training is also exhausting too. So I think like having that nice sectioned approach is a good long term. Yeah,
I know I needed a break from baseball. I think just being home and like, I think I just need to like kind of get back into during the whole COVID year in 2020 into 2021. My focus was more on lifting than it was on more of my dollar was spent on like lifting and training. And then once the season got going, I started to get burnt out of that a little bit and wanted to just spend more of my time on baseball, which I did because you're in season 2, right? And then now by the end of the season, I think I threw my first time throwing to hitters was in February, and my last time was in September, right? So that's a long season. And there were a couple little breaks in between. But now after that whole long season, now I'm kind of like, all right, I kind of want to just like get back in here, turn my brain off, lift something heavy, for a little while. I kind of get back into that groove a little bit, and then I'm sure, it's just it's a continual shift constantly of like, how much are you spending on what? And right now it's just, I'm just enjoying the lifting side.
It's nice out. You feel some good grass under your feet. And that's cool. So then you're thinking about, so you'll lift here for a little while, and then you'll transition more into like a drive line scenario or being around other guys where you're, trying to pump up the velocity, get yourself ready for a long season of throwing. Get the arm in shape, and then go give it your best shot.
I mean, you don't really know when your last day is going to be throwing baseball. So like, it could be because of injury, could be because of you could get released, could be because you retire, could be whatever that is, right? No one knows. So I know that you just kind of take it day by day, and like I just want to go into next year and put myself in the best possible spot. And then if I fail, I fail. You can't control whether you fail or succeed. All you can control is like the effort that you put in, like trying to your day to day, right? And then like if you succeed, great, but in the end, like it's all about like just doing everything you can to succeed, and then whether it happens or not is kind of not up to fate, but just like it's all out of your control. And I think a lot of like really successful, even big leaguers who have had a lot of success believe that, and they know that like if they do the things necessary, they'll succeed more times than not. And if they fail one time, it sucks, but like you still got to get up and go do the next, keep going. So I don't know what's going to happen next season, a long 140 game season or whatever it is. But I mean, I figured all I can do is just put my best foot forward and then see what happens. I think I have the stuff to do it. So it's just gotta just keep pushing and grinding along and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's been fun to watch watch your development and contribute, and just be a resource for you in general, or just reflect back where we can help, and just be a.
Yeah, I think. I think SAA has been a huge part of my baseball journey. I think there's been so many people that have been part of it. So you gotta I've had different people involved in different aspects of that journey, right? And you kind of have to, sometimes when you get lost along the way, you kind of have to go back to something that maybe you did way back when, or a person that really helped you get from point A to point B, but now you're going from point E to point F or whatever, right? And sometimes you might need to go ask that person or go work with that person, that you worked along with earlier, because you end up working with so many people with so many different opinions that have so many different ways of going about their business. So yeah, I mean, it's been good. It's been good. I think, you never want to burn bridges. You always want to, keep the relationships. I think that's also important. It's just like the relationships you build in baseball. You always want to keep them around, and because you never know when they're going to help you out later around, right?
Right.
If I was a jerk working out here, my junior year of high school, might not want to train me right now,
Yeah, true.
So it's a whole, that it goes both ways for sure.
Yeah, well, we love having you.
Yeah.
And you always got a job here too, if you want.
All right,
You mentioned that earlier, but
yeah.
you're on to bigger things. But
Yeah, well, we'll see. Once, whenever that last time I throw a baseball is, then maybe I'll be calling you up.
Yeah. Well, and two, we're super interested in the metrics of everything. And
Yeah.
that's our job, is performance. And sometimes for people it's health and fitness, and then other people it's just pure performance. And your story has been a really good, that was ultimately my goal for Superior Athletic, was to just be a resource for people that had inspiration of physical performance, and regardless of what it is, just help people reach their peak performance, and just be a resource through the process, because that was always what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And my journey was very similar, and you're kind of like the outcome that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I was going through a lot of that trial and error stuff myself, and a lot of the stuff wasn't as available as it is today, and I had to go uncover and flip these stones and see what that was about. And by the end of it, I kind of ran short on time.
Yeah.
In my career, and then it was just after I'd learned these things, I was more than willing and excited to pass that on to the next generation of athlete, and that's kind of what I'm passionate about. So watching your story unfold has been pretty cool. And your dad and I go back and forth that ideal world that me and him get to drink a beer together at your first big league game.
Big league game, yeah.
That's our.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get, hopefully for my first big league game, I'll just get everyone who wants to come and have a beer at the first big league game will come and enjoy it, right?
Sounds like a plan.
Kurt, you too.
Yeah.
So anything we can do to help along the way, but it's been fun. Appreciate you being on today.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a great story to share to some of the younger athletes and people that have aspirations. So
yeah, hopefully someone got something out of my rambling at times. So.
No, it was good. It's great.
So appreciate it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Pretty good.